Welcome back to the Holiday Kitchen, Friendsgiving Cooking for Fun bread episode. Kind of. So we have been doing the Friendsgiving series, which if you have not heard my spiel about Friendsgiving, these recipes are Thanksgiving style recipes that you can use any old time, that you can also prep on a busy day and then take them to like a Friendsgiving party you're doing the next day. And this is the bread episode. And when I say bread, I mean we're doing a cornbread that's spicy and cheesy and delicious. And then we're doing a stuffing. Because if there's one thing that I don't mess with on Thanksgiving, it's the stuffing. I never get it any other time of year. So I'm not gonna skip it. That's my one Thanksgiving non-negotiable. But with like Thanksgiving holiday recipes, I always equate the holiday with like those fluffy, pillowy dinner rolls. And this time I was like, let's give us something different, something new. So this is going to be a Calabrian chili cheesy cornbread and then a Dutch oven mushroom stuffing, which has a few things going on with it that make it like a little bit better than your standard stuffing and a little bit less dishes. Don't tell your mother, no offense to stuffings everywhere, but give this one a try maybe. But we were starting with the cornbread, universally the easier of the bread. Now, typically with baking recipes, I mise everything out and it's like all this stuff goes into a bowl. But the way I want you to cook is like this. So I was like, it's probably better to demonstrate doing this all on a scale because that makes this a one bowl cornbread, like one and done. So we're starting with 65 grams of butter. 64. Let's melt this really quickly. I've never showed you guys this.
Nice.
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow. We have melted butter and then 1/2 cup of olive oil, 240 grams of sour cream, and I will have all of this listed in cups. 3 eggs. I'm not doing this one-handed, not risking it. And then my secret sauce before we go into adding the corn. 2 tablespoons of the corn liquid. It's like sugar water, very delicious, and it's just a little bit, but it helps keep everything moist. Then drain this and then 145 grams of the kernels, which yes, count as a wet ingredient because they're damp. As a kid, canned corn was like my thing. So you're gonna have a little bit left, and what a treat,
Is it?
Is it? And I mix this first just to make the sour cream and the eggs have like a nice creamy base. But we're going to be adding in a few more wet ingredients, so it's just like the preemptive mix. Then a tablespoon of Calabrian chili paste, which will have some kick to it. If you don't have this, you can also do 2 tablespoons of chopped pickled jalapenos, 2 tablespoons of chopped pickled Fresno peppers, just a little bit of spice. The reason I like a white cheddar is because it doesn't like really stand out in the cornbread. It kind of melts into it, but you still get these nice little cheesy pockets. And this is a sharp cheddar, mildly aged. So it's developed some flavor that marries nicely with the roughness of the corn, the spiciness of the Calabrian chili. So I have a cheese preference. You do not have to follow my cheese preference. I'm just giving you a reason for my cheese preference. So the cheese goes in, and then 1/4 cup of chopped parsley. Now, a few important things are going to happen before we add the dry ingredients. One, we're going to lose the whisk.
Wow.
It had so much impact in my brain.
Boom.
We're going to deal with that later. But we're going to move to the spatula. And then the dry ingredients are relatively simple. So 130 grams of all-purpose flour, 70 grams of brown sugar, and then 180 grams of finely ground cornmeal. So a small cornmeal education class. This is actually polenta. I just didn't want to buy finely ground cornmeal. I had run out of my masa harina. So I blended this up into a fine powder, and that's the texture that you want. If you do straight up polenta, which is a bit gritty, a bit grainy, you won't have that nice, dense, moist cornbread. You're going to have something where the moisture had nowhere to go. So it now has a drier bake. It's hard to explain, but just Don't stress about finding or ordering finely ground cornmeal. If you have standard cornmeal, that's totally fine. Just blitz it in the blender. And then we've talked about this before, but baking soda needs an acid to react, which is great. This has sour cream and brown sugar in it, both acidic. But I'm actually doing a high amount of baking powder, so 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And that's because it's double acting. This is a lot of batter, so the baking powder will react, 1, when it hits the moisture of these ingredients, and then 2, when it hits the heat of the oven. And then we're adding baking soda, which will start reacting right when it hits the acidic elements and the moisture of this batter. So that'll give it like an extra oomph. And then a teaspoon of salt. Let's mix this up. Now, since we are using the spatula to mix, over mix this. Like mix it for a bit longer than you think, because there's always going to be pockets of brown sugar, pockets of flour. It would just get stuck in your whisk. It would be really annoying, honestly, but the spatula just needs a bit more time. So we have this really nice thick batter. It should feel thick. You should be like, does it need anything else? The answer, no, it's gonna be perfect. This is equivalent to any loaf pan. It's gonna bake a little flatter and have a crispier top. So let's get this in there. Even with your loaf pan, you'll be like, oh, I'm filling it pretty close to the top, but it'll rise, say 25%, but nothing like, it won't be spilling over. Let's make this nice and smooth. And then into the oven at 350 convection, so 375 standard for, I know the time, and we're gonna put it on the screen. Cool.
Nice.
And like anytime around holidays or like times where I'm cooking a lot, I almost always leave a butter pack this size at room temperature because I feel like it's the only way to get perfectly softened butter without having to ruin your life, ruin your microwave, or like stick it in your bra. So this is a nice like softened butter stick, and we're just gonna make our honey chili butter now because that's not what you want to be like doing tomorrow. So day 1, honey butter, softened butter stick. So that gets the whipping started, and I'm gonna eyeball this, but 2 tablespoons of honey, which the same with a salad dressing. It is a really nice emulsifier. And then 1 tablespoon Calabrian chili paste. And let's whip. Okay, I switched to a spatula because same thing with the whisk. I just wanted to throw it in the sink again. But the butter was getting clumped in it. So whipping out all those clumps of butter. And we have this really nice whipped texture. When you bring it back to room temperature the next day, then it will be perfect to serve. So we're just gonna store this in the fridge, and I'll see you when the cornbread's out. Okay, oh, there she is. This cornbread will look, and this is for all my panickers out there, this cornbread will look a little brown, a little roasty toasty, a little dark, but it smells delicious. And it's also because this is a high sugar cornbread and a cornbread with a lot going on. I just wanted to take this over. You'd be in great shape. I like giving it a day to cool, a day to settle into itself. And when I say cool, do not put this in the fridge. The number one way to suck moisture out of a cake, out of a loaf, out of anything is to fridge it right away. What's happening is you're lowering the temperature really quickly. A lot of moisture is quickly evaporating off of it, and then the crumb just gets denser, drier. It's like one of the biggest fallacies about cooling something down is that you should pop it in the freezer, pop it in the fridge. If you are eating something within 48 hours, let it stay at room temperature. It'll be so much better. So cornbread and cornbread honey butter, Friendsgiving are done, but this episode is not. We have one more bread thing to go. Now we're still in the bread section technically, because what is stuffing other than a savory bread pudding? And also, call it stuffing, call it dressing, call it whatever you want, but how have we not brought it into our year-long food? Mashed potato is a year-long food. Mac and cheese is a year-long food. This is my petition to make stuffing a year-long food because it is something I crave. Now this is going to be, I'm getting all dramatic. Now this is going to be a Dutch oven stuffing, but I'm making it in our beloved quart pan. When I say Dutch oven, that just means we start the cooking process and finish it in one kind of pan. So it can either be this or it can be your 3.5 quart braising dish. You have options. I'm just doing the braising dish because then it looks like a baking dish all the way through. So first things first, we do need to dry out our bread. This bread is already pretty dry, but it just helps to put in the oven for a little bit. So let's slice this into cubes. I also, I like sourdough for this, but really it can be any country bread that calls for you. And if you're buying a loaf from the store, you're going to be using about 2/3 of a loaf, 3/4 of a loaf, 14 ounces. I like to keep it this size because that makes it so that's enough to really soak up everything that we're building with the rest of the ingredients, but not small enough that it just is gone and then you're eating bread mush. Sounds delicious, but in theory, bread mush, not great. All on an unlined sheet tray, 350-degree oven. Be good. 10 minutes. Now, these are the two most delicious parts of the recipe. Fennel haters, you know what I think of you by now. Grow up. No, it's okay. So the fennel does get roasted down. So if you are bringing this to a Friendsgiving/Thanksgiving where there are picky eaters or kids, don't worry. We're kind of getting it to a point where it's really mild and very much melds in with everything else. So 1 large fennel bulb and thinly slice that. And then the secret sauce of this recipe, I splurged. I went oyster mushroom. They're a little bit more expensive, but I think their texture is just so nice. They get so rich, even when we're doing small slivers of them, that you could do this with really any mushroom, shiitake, button, whatever. But oysters, like, treat yourself. So we're gonna just peel that up, roughly chop it, but pieces like this. So putting that in with the fennel, not crowding the pan, but if you do, it's not the end of the world because mushrooms shrink up. They lose like 2/3 of their size. And then, of course, we're going to give them a running start. Got to season them with a bit of salt and olive oil. Not too much. And by the time our vegetables are going in, our bread will be coming out. So it's a dance of a stuffing. Do you hear that? It sounds dry, like the Sahara. Okay, to the side. So we have 2 shallots to slice. My personal nightmare, I like to slice them lengthwise. I think it's a little pretty, but it does take time. And then 6 ounces of scallions, which sounds like a lot. And it is, but it's worth it. 1 cup of parsley, finely chopped, and then 3 garlic cloves grated. The celery. The mise en place never ends. I hope you enjoyed the mise en montage. That took us 15 minutes. I hope your 10 seconds was nice. Now we can go to the stove. When I said there was a lot of fat to this recipe, I meant it. We are starting with medium heat and then a whole stick of butter. And then I'm gonna get in there with 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So while our shallots and celery have gone in, I've pulled out the fennel and the mushrooms. If the mushrooms look super, super dry and almost burnt, perfect. The fennel should be a little bit brown at the edges. So we'll set that all aside. The celery and shallots are gonna be going for 9 to 10 minutes. This is my favorite step because they're in so much fat that you're running absolutely no risk of anything going wrong other than them smelling wonderful and delicious and like Thanksgiving. So give that a bit of seasoning. And after the 9 minutes, this is the equivalent of an actor hiding their script in the drawer. After the 9 minutes, we're gonna add in the scallion and then the garlic, thyme, and oregano and sage. And if you're watching this Friendsgiving recipe series and you're like, what is one recipe to make if I really want to feel like this is a Thanksgiving recipe? It's this one. Okay, shallots and celery have about halved in size. And you can see that the scallions like immediately absorb a lot of the fat. And so there's a lot of stuff going in here and they're gonna kind of like suck the butter in. And since there is a lot of stuff, you will need a lot of salt. Salt on stuff equals flavor. Trademarking that. All right, a few minutes here. It immediately pulls in the butter, and then as soon as you see it start to release a little bit of the fat, we're moving on. So the butter has started to give a little bit, and it's ready to welcome in our roasted, caramelized, deeply colored vegetables. A little bit of black pepper, a lot of bit of black pepper, and then we're gonna turn off the heat. That's kind of done what it's needing to do. And now we're gonna take the bread and make it wet and let everything come together. So how we're gonna make the bread wet? I'm so glad you asked. We are gonna take 3 eggs and 1.25 cups of broth. This is vegetable stock. You can also do a teaspoon of better than bouillon and whisk it in with 1.25 cups of warm water. That looks nice. Try to get it as like buttery yellow as you can. And I've done this before in a deeper Dutch oven. So it's about confidence and being delicate. 2 things that you know I'm great at. So we'll see. But all of our bread's gonna go in. And I'm gonna mix that with the vegetables first delicately. So I was nervous. The bread looked like it was about to be too much. But what happens is as it soaks in with the broth, with the egg, it kind of collapses in a wet bread way, but not in a mush bread way. It's really satisfying. So I'm flattening this out. If you want to transfer it to a 9 by 13 inch baking dish, if that works better for you, you can totally do that. I never want to do more dishes, so we're leaving it in here. And the piece de resistance is this tiny hunk of Parmigiano Reggiano or pecorino, if you're feeling fancy. And I'm just gonna shave chunks of this on top. It calls for 3.5 ounces, so that's a hefty amount of parm, but you'll thank me later. But for now, this has been day 1 of the bread episode. This goes in the fridge. We bake it tomorrow. Oh, hello there. Did you have a pleasant sleep? We've done so much since I saw you 3 seconds ago, but Thanksgiving dinner is coming together. Friendsgiving's coming together. This is ice cold because it has been in the fridge for now 18 hours. But when you open the lid, it's kind of crazy. It still smells amazing and it still looks relatively moist / wet / all terms that we want to be using when it comes to stuffing. Pre-baked. See how she glistens? It also smells amazing. I'm gonna make you guys smell it. But right now, since it's day 2, this is like, oh, you did all your prep the day before, and now it's gonna go in the oven covered for 30 minutes and then uncovered for 20.
Smells.
It's,
Oh wow!
it's
Yeah.
it made
That smells really good.
my peer pressure.
Wow. Nice.
Okay, thanks guys, thanks. And let's pop it in the oven. 30 minutes at 375. Goodbye. Have a nice life. Thanks for helping. Oh, yeah. Oh, it is perfect. This one is so easy to tell when it's done because it smells amazing. And the cheese is all like disappeared. It's not like stringy, gooey, cheesy. It just makes the top look like glossy, glistening. Like, what is that? Is that the best stuffing I've ever had, maybe?
Whoa!
No! Okay, well, wait, we're going to leave this in. We're going to leave this in. Before I save Christmas, we're going to turn off the oven because since this is the bread, etc. episode, remember the cornbread we made yesterday? She now needs to be like warmed up. So oven off for 10 minutes after the oven's been working is my best hack for like perfectly warming bread. Now I need to fix that.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, we're good. Wow, it's chaos.
Falling apart. Ooh, our cornbread is nice and warm. It's also greasy, but that's the whole point. It's very good at containing all the moisture, especially for a day. So if you want something that's make ahead, both of these are great options. That's why we did like the one day you do all the work and then the second day you get all the reward. So here's how I like to slice this and then present it. Still very moist. I love cutting it at a diagonal because then it's not like this like unapproachable, like huge amount of cornbread. And we did not forget about the butter, which really, I was leaving it out at room temperature for a bit, so it doesn't need to do anything other than be zhuzhed up with a spatula. So a little hosting tip / preference is I like to put the butter on a dish, make it look nice, make it look a little rustic, and then I put in 2 knives and then put them in a way that like looks like it might have already been used or scooped. And since they're multiple, it kind of just encourages people to use the butter. A lot of people don't want to break into a stick of butter, but 2 knives make a canoe. Okay, our cornbread looks phenomenal, but the stuffing is what I have been excited for. I'm just gonna cut a small piece, just a little piece. I have people coming over for this. So the benefit of the overnight rest is that all of the top is all crispy with like the cheese melted in, like disappearing in, but the bottom / inside has had the chance to get all the flavors of the caramelized vegetables, the broth, like all that aromatic flavor that we built up by cooking down the 6 ounces of scallions. Like all of that has had time to come together. So you get that wonderful like savory bread pudding texture and then the really, really crispy bits on the top like this. So let's see if all that equals what I think it will equal. God, this is so good. Okay, crispy bit because I like texture, a textural stuffing. I'm having a moment. Okay, absolutely insane. Okay, good job, bread number 1. The thing about Friendsgiving is I did not anticipate the fact that I'm going to be tasting like a tiny Thanksgiving dinner all in one. But how else are you going to know how it tastes? No complaints. I'm having a great time. I think any cornbread is a good cornbread. This cornbread is an exceptionally good cornbread. I don't know if it's the cheese. I don't know if it's like the right amount of corn. I don't know. Actually, I do think it's the oil butter combo, but it is so moist. The exterior is like nicely browned, so you get like that brown nutty flavor, but it's perfectly spicy. The honey butter on top is a must. It's a must. So that's why you put 2 knives so people actually use the butter. Wow, 10 out of 10 for Bread and Things Week. We'll see if next week, which is vegetables kind of, will live up to it. I will see you for that Friendsgiving episode.